Welcome aboard the Seatbelt Sign podcast. We've been cleared for takeoff.
Hey everybody, back with another guest on the episode. Today we're talking to Nate Thompson. What's up, Nate?
Yo, what's up, buddy?
Not much. So Nate, you and I, we don't know each other. We just saw each other's faces for the first time like 5 seconds ago. I found you through Instagram because you are a paramotorist. You want to tell people? You want to tell people what that entails?
It's to make a long story short, it's basically a sheet with strings and a motor and a fan. So.
I love it. What I've been telling people, I was born in South Florida. I'm an East Coast kid, so I'm just telling everybody, I'm like, dude, it's like we're back in the Everglades on a fan boat, but you strap that big fan to your back on a backpack, and you just fly around with a little parachute, and it looks freaking sick, dude. How cool is it?
I'm telling you, it's definitely a life-changing experience. I originally started with just free flight, so flying without the motor. And this last April, I finally got into the motoring portion of paragliding, and it's just been like a life-changing thing, man.
It's so fun. You know, I fly airplanes. I teach airplanes, and I fly them for a living. Just small piston ones, so down low altitudes. I don't fly for an airline. A little jet time, but not much. But the paragliding, I did it once in Argentina. I was down in Patagonia, and we just ran off the side of a mountain and and you're flying around. And it is really cool. You guys have an altimeter, and you have a stall horn, right?
I guess that you could have certain instruments that would kind of indicate like a rapid descent and stuff like that. But as far as like a stall alarm and stuff, at least not to my knowledge, it doesn't really exist, or it's not really a thing. It's kind of a tricky thing to, I guess, put an instrument on for a paraglider.
Yeah, I can't remember the specific terminology. And again, you know, there was a little bit of a language barrier. I'm fluent in Spanish, but every region of the world, you know, it's kind of their own dialect. And
sure.
But this guy, you know, he was telling me, because I was like, oh, I'm so fascinated by paragliding. You know, you're just catching the thermals and you're flying around, you know, as an airplane pilot. That's like so vastly different from what I'm used to. What's the longest you've ever stayed in the air? And I'm thinking he's going to say like 20, 30 minutes. He was like, oh, I did a 6-hour out and back the other week. We were just catching these thermals through a mountain valley. And I was like, no way, dude. That's incredible. So let's dive into all of it, man. When did you get into this? Because I know that you said paragliding first. When did you first get into that?
Yeah, so just to, I guess, give a little backstory. Like 2015, I'm like trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, and I was like, maybe I'll be a pilot, man. And I looked at the cost for that, and I was like, ooh, man, I don't know.
I know. I got one foot in the grave already, dude. It's expensive.
Yeah, I couldn't even get my big toe in the grave, dude. So I started looking around, and I was always fascinated by hang gliding. I kind of knew that paragliding existed, but I thought it was more of like a big parachute. I didn't realize like how, huge it actually was. So, I'm swinging around on the internet, and I find this guy, Tucker Gott. Most paramotor pilots would probably have a similar story. And I'm just like blown away that this guy has a paraglider and a fan mixed together, and he's just cruising. So that was kind of the day that it just got in my head. I was like, man, I got to fly. I got to do this one day. Well, COVID hit, and a lot of these paragliding schools weren't getting a whole lot of business and stuff because things were kind of shutting down. But I met this guy. He was able to at least get me a wing. And then when things started to ease up as far as the COVID restrictions go, I had a wing. I was ready to start. And we just went up to a hill in Boulder after doing a bunch of ground school. And we just started, man.
That is so freaking cool, dude. I love it. And the first couple of flights, are you tandem or were you solo?
My very first flight was solo. Later on during flying, when I had already gotten my P2 rating, which is just like a skill rating given by a private organization. I went out to Torrey Pines at my first tandem flight, which, if any of you guys listening are going to be in San Diego area, you got to go stop by the glider port. It's like a life-changing flight, man.
Okay, say it one more time. The glider what?
It's the glider port. It's out in like La Jolla, California, near San Diego.
Okay. The glider port in La Jolla. Dude, I'm writing
Yep,
that
it's
down.
called Torrey Pines, to
Okay.
be more specific.
Okay, wicked. I want to go down this rabbit hole, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's a good one to really just dive into, because I've seen a lot of you guys on YouTube over the years, and I know that you have a YouTube channel. So
Hmm.
let me shout that out really quick. Okay, we got
Sure.
New Venture Vlog on YouTube. Everybody go follow it. New Venture Vlog, all one word. And I want to talk about some of your videos. So we're going to get back to that later, because you got already in the few videos that you've uploaded, some
Hmm.
crazy shit has happened, and I want to talk all about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but let's take it back, very to the all the way to the beginning. So you're in ground school. What are they teaching you? Because I'm blown away, fascinated, and I have no idea. So tell me everything.
Yeah, so ground school starts with like the basic fundamentals of like how does an airfoil work, right? When we're looking at strings and, nylon, or folded up wing, and you've never flown or you don't have no idea how an airfoil works, it's really like daunting, right? So, luckily I'd done a lot of research prior to this because I was already kind of like a, aviation fanatic. So I kind of knew the basics of how wings worked. I just didn't know how a paraglider worked. So ground school starts with the basics. How does the wing work? And then we move transition into like how does the wing launch? Like how do we get it overhead safely without oscillations before we leave the ground?
Interesting.
Once we're able to do that consistently, getting the wing overhead, it's nice and dead overhead. It's not rocking from the left to the right side. Oscillation is what we call it. You're ready to start the process of leaving the ground.
Okay. And did they cover anything about like weather or maybe
Oh
like
yeah,
airspace? What else?
yeah, of course, yeah. So they'll go over a lot of weather stuff, especially with like free flight. It's not as simple as oh, it's calm outside and let's go fly. Especially once you get more advanced into free flight, you're actually relying on rowdy conditions to stay aloft, right? We want the thermal activity. We kind of want to push that bar a little bit as far as like, how is the weather developing in the day? So obviously, when you're new, you want to fly really early in the morning when the winds are very laminar and smooth and just really buttery. Because I mean, my first flight where it was not that way, I remember I was scared stiff. I didn't like know what to do. Like I was just like, I thought leaving and going further away from the mountain, I would go, down, and I just like kept going up. And I knew the theory of what was going on, but I was so scared that like I couldn't process it. So the day that I got to the ground on that flight was just like it felt like a miracle.
That's got to be so wild, man, because as a pilot, we learn these type of environmental phenomenons, but you guys, you're in it and you're relying on it to stay alive or to stay aloft. Dude, I just can't even fathom it, man. It's got to be so neat. Over the
Yeah,
years, you must have developed a really good eye for just like knowing kind of how the wind is going to react based off of your environment, whatever mountains you might be by. Am I right?
yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy because even coming from 2020 as a new pilot to where I mean we're going to be getting to 2026 here soon, there is still so much that I don't know, and there are plenty of pilots that have more knowledge than me, and it's like I still learn something every single day that I go out. It's just one of those things that you just never stop learning from, and especially when it comes to weather, it just never stops.
Oh, yeah. That is sound advice, and it's the mantra across the entire industry. A good pilot is always learning. And
100%.
part of that means stay humble, because if you're not,
Absolutely.
you're going to eat a big piece of humble pie when you put yourself into an oh shit situation.
Oh, 100%, man. I literally couldn't say it any better. Some of the like best of the best pilots I've ever met, they've went down or they've had an accident or whatever. And when you see pilots that aren't even at that level, you're just like, hey guys, we need to like tone it down a little bit because we're all subject to the same gravity.
Yes, yes. And Mother Nature sometimes can be brutal. She wants to teach you a lesson.
Oh,
And
100%.
And, my dad, he always said, life's tough because it gives you the test first and the lesson second. So
I like that.
sometimes
I like that.
you're a little unprepared for the day, but you're going to walk away learning a lot. So you've been through ground school. They're teaching a lot of great stuff. You did a couple of flights. What is the training process like for you to be a full-fledged licensed pilot? Do you get a license? Do you just get like a certificate? I know that you had mentioned like a couple of ratings. So talk me through that process as somebody that knows nothing about it.
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest, bigger players in paragliding and free flight is an organization called USPA, which is United States Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association. And basically, what they do is they're like a governing body over hang gliding and paragliding as far as the free flight goes.
Cool.
And they're able to kind of give a structured lesson plan and like an element of this pilot should be able to do this by this point and have this many hours and this many flights and flown in this many conditions and maybe taken this class or that class before moving to a P2 or 3, 4, or it maxes out at 5. So it goes from P0, meaning you're brand new to this, you're starting to learn, to P5. I've never met a P5 pilot, but they are out there and they do exist. But generally, the P4 pilots are pretty top notch. But again, like still being top notch, but still being like humble and learning because, like I said, dude, it never stops. Like you're always learning, like every day, every flight.
And 10 years from now, who knows? There might be a P6. Things are always evolving.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. It reminds me a lot of airplane training. It sounds like similar objectives, similar standards, and also it reminds me a lot of being a snowboard instructor. You got levels 1, 2, and 3. But what's cool for you guys is I would imagine on some of these levels, there's got to be tricks involved as well, right? Because I've seen you do what I would call like a barrel roll in some of your videos. So is that ever like part of the certification to go to the next rank? Like, do you have to be able to do some ballsy maneuvers?
Yeah, so we call it acro. It's kind of an all-encompassing term for, I don't know if in, fixed wing stuff, if they call it the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's actually, I'm so silly and my vocabulary is not so strong, but acrobatics would be the proper term. We call it aerobatics in the plane too. So that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Not just tricks. I'm so silly.
No, I mean, it is what it is, man. Sometimes it feels like the X Games, man.
It looks like it, dude.
Dude, it's wild, man. No, for USPA, there's not like you need to complete 3 barrel rolls to go to a P4. Like that's not generally how it goes. But there is something called SIV training, and SIV, if I'm remembering correctly, it's a French acronym. It doesn't line up with the English, language very well, but it stands for Simulated Incident in Flight. And before, I'm not sure if it's between a P2 to a P3 or where exactly it is in the curriculum. You should have completed an SIV course. And in that course, it's basically you get towed up behind a boat over a lake, and the instructor on the radio will say something like, all right, you're off tow, so you're going to release your line. Now I want you to reach up and I want you to pull all of the front lines, right, which is our A lines, and that'll go to the leading edge of the glider, and it's going to cause a collapse or a full frontal, if you will. And then the instructor will coach you through how to, fix that malfunction, which is pretty critical for free flight because in free flight, when you're, kind of wrangling these thermals, you're getting knocked around left and right. The wing wants to pitch forward and wants to surge. So you got to be able to ready catch these surges. And it's going to come a day where you don't catch it and it collapses, and you need to know how to handle the glider and not over handle the glider.
Nate, I'm so glad that we just dynamically wound up on this course, because that was one of the big videos on your YouTube channel that I was so curious about. So you're flying around over water, and I didn't know anything before clicking on it, and I'm like, oh, sweet. Okay, he's just flying around. He's having a great time. And then all of a sudden, shit hits the fan, and then the camera goes crazy because it's all like on a GoPro, And then I see the reserve chute fly, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy had a crazy incident. And then you ended up in water, which I'm thinking to myself, oh man, he's got that huge heavy fan on his back, and he's in the water, and like you're under the water, the camera's under the water, it sees all the ropes, and my girlfriend and I were both watching it. And I'm like, dude, how did this guy? And then you hear a voice. So I was going to ask you, who is that person talking in the video? But now I understand a lot better. So it was a training. But how freaky was that moment when you're kind of like free falling, then you throw the reserve chute, and then how crazy is it in the water, dude? Were you able to like, did you have a life jacket on?
Yeah, so that video that you're talking about, I was doing what we would consider a high risk maneuver, but I was over water, so it was kind of like, I'm in an SIV, I'm in a safe place, I got 2 reserves, whatever. Prior to that incident, I was practicing wingovers, and wingovers is basically where you throw your body over the top of the glider and then you swing back under and you do it again. It's a very like timed maneuver. If you time it wrong on your outside brake, you catch a collapse, and then you gotta, fly flat and level and restart and build the energy again. And this was my first SIV, and I'm like really trying to get these wingovers dialed, and I just keep catching collapses. So as I'm getting ready to enter this maneuver before that video starts, I started with the deep spiral, and then just as I exit the deep spiral, which is basically pointing the glider at the ground, and then you're just spiraling at the ground with a ton of energy. I exit it, I lose a ton of energy, but I'm committed, dude. I'm like over water. I've got 2 reserves and an instructor on the radio. I'm like, dude, we're going hard. So I pull hard, brake, and as soon as I get 12 o'clock over the glider, I was like, oh shit. And I just started falling.
And what altitude? What altitude are you at? What do you think AGL? What do you think above ground? Maybe a couple thousand?
Above the water, I'm thinking I was like at most 400 or 500 feet.
Holy shit, dude, that's so low. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It wasn't very high at all. So the immediate answer was throw your reserve. And it's kind of crazy. When I started falling, I actually wasn't scared. It was just kind of like I knew I was going to catch the bottom of the glider, and it was going to just turn into like a drag chute if it didn't reopen, because it actually opened up again in an auto rotation with a curvat, which is where the wingtip is kind of folded into the lines. But by that point, the reserve was already out. And I don't know if the video has it or not, but you can hear the instructor on the radio saying reserve, reserve, reserve. And that was before it even happened. So he was pretty on point. He like knew it was not going to go well.
Dude, for me and for all the listeners out there, we just went from 0 to hero in terms of knowledge of paramotoring and parasailing. And it was so cool to hear you talk about proficiently all these different maneuvers and things that you're doing dynamically in the air as it's happening in real time. So, dude, I'm just so blown away. It was so cool. And yeah, man, I want to go do this stuff like tomorrow, dude. So if I were to go Google, what do I need? Everybody out there, I want to go do this tomorrow. What do I need to Google? Do you suggest learning parasailing first, or hell, just go paramotoring right off the bat? What do you think?
I think a great pilot can do both. And the reason I think that is because with paragliding, you really got to have your skills dialed, because we're launching in midday conditions when the thermals are active, the wind is coming up the ridge, it's already strong, you're going to get lifted if you don't get plucked. Like you really got to be dialed. Now motoring is a different skill, because a lot of guys are flying lower to the ground. So that's where a lot of motoring pilots are getting hurt. As you know, the ground's not your friend. So
yeah, and I teach all my students the airplane. There's a thing called surface friction, and so all of the wind, all of the little particulates in our atmosphere are always moving. And the higher up you go in the jet stream, it's kind of like a river, and it flows. And the closer you get to the ground, there's more things for it to get turbulent against, which is why we call it surface friction. So when you're down, 2,000 feet above the ground and lower, Like
Hmm.
it can get bumpy, and it happens to me. It just happened to me the other night. I dropped off some people in South Carolina, flew back to North Carolina. It's been a smooth flight at 3,000 feet all the way for the hour and 20 minutes home. And as soon as I go like to 1,000 feet going to the runway, I'm just getting knocked around
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
airplane. And so, that's me in a Baron. So I'm, a fairly heavy airplane with two big motors on either side of me. And you guys are just up there with your body weight and a parachute, man. So I couldn't even imagine. You're getting pushed around a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes when I fly into DIA, it's pretty much known for being turbulent in and out. We'll just be getting rocked around, and I'll be like, man, how the hell do I fly in this with a bed sheet and strings? Like it's
Bitch.
just like you're just sitting there just getting like ragdolled in this like little tin can with wings, and you're like, how does this work, dude?
And when you go home and you get in your bed at night and you're closing your eyes, you go, man, that was such a fun day. I can't wait to do it again.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I love free flight, but the motor definitely has a new special spot in my heart for sure.
Yeah, I imagine because I've seen maybe it was this Tucker Gott guy that you were talking about, but I saw a
Yeah.
guy years ago. Maybe it's him on YouTube, and he just has like so many cool adventures where he takes off out of a soccer field and he'll go to like a Burger King and land by by a couple of Whoppers, take off again, out of a confined area and go eat like a burger at 5 or 6 thousand feet and then float home. I mean, is that have
Oh
you done
yeah.
you've done some stuff like that?
Yeah, so when I first got the motor, I'd already done a bunch of like cross country flights doing free flight. So I was like, like this can't be too hard. I'll just, now that I got the motor, I can just, push a straight line. So I took off from a park out near my house and I flew to Bucky's, which, if anyone's not familiar, it's basically like God's favorite beaver, but it's a gas station.
Dude, I saw that picture. That's so cool.
Yeah, so that was a decently long flight there and back, and it actually took me two attempts because the first attempt I was on my way back and I got low on fuel and I didn't have any oil with me, so I couldn't just stop at a gas station and keep going. So it took two attempts.
Dude, this is so fascinating. This is making me think so closely to like when I send my students out for their cross country solos in an airplane. So you're thinking about
Mhm.
fuel, you're thinking about oil
Yeah.
reserve, you're doing a lot of pilotage, so you must have some sort of map and you're looking at references on the ground. Am I right?
Yeah, so that VFR, and I already planned the route. So living in the area, I'm already pretty aware
Yeah.
of like the terrain and what's around and VFR and all that stuff and altitude. So it for this flight in particular, I didn't have to use any like instruments or maps or anything. It was just like initially after takeoff, it was stay under like 7,200 feet and then push out north, and then out north from where I took off, I was able to climb a little higher, but you
Yeah.
know.
Pure pilotage, looking on the ground, looking at your references,
Yeah.
and navigating that way. And I'm interested to know. So, are you using that fan? So, let's say you feel like, okay, I'm pointed at this water tower. I need to hit that water tower before I hit my next checkpoint. I know that I'm drifting a little bit left. So, do you kind of like use the fan and then you gas it to kind of like help you counteract that crosswind component? Or like, how does that flight portion work?
Yeah. So generally speaking, with the motor, we're trying to fly in calmer conditions.
That makes
With
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So generally speaking, we don't have too much rowdy weather. Now, with that said, for that flight, I took off like pretty much at like the crack of dawn. It was like 5:30 a.m. So it was really calm to start the flight, but progressively toward the end of the flight, we're approaching like 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the springtime. So it's not too bad, but definitely on the way back after 10:30, it was starting to get pretty rowdy. So as far as crosswind goes, you'll kind of do something like crabbing. I don't know if that's something that,
Yeah, same.
yeah. So you kind of be like crabbing a little bit just to kind of keep your heading. The fan is just for altitude control, so it's up or down. And my motor tops out at about 8,000 RPM. So at about 5,200 RPM, I'm just flat and level.
So let's take a quick break and let's talk about the motor itself. So I saw
Okay.
recently on one of your stories that you were doing your own maintenance on your fan, your motor, however the lingo is. I'm still learning, but
Yeah.
did you grow up as like a guy that worked on cars? Did you understand motors, or this was kind of your first introduction to that world?
Um, no, so I've always kind of had like a curious mind and like kind of a mechanical minded, mind, I guess. So even from like a young age, I was like kind of tearing stuff apart that I probably shouldn't and trying to figure out how it worked. But when I got my first car, which was like a Dodge Neon, everyone gave me a hard time about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, car sucks" or whatever. And I was like, "Come on, you guys!" Like, it was like $700. It was like the hardest $700 I ever earned in my life. Like, dude, like you already know, like when you're young, you're like really struggling for every dollar. So $700 went to this clapped out, barely running Dodge Neon, and every time it broke, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to figure it out. And so that turned into, learning how motors work and all that stuff. And then people kept giving me a hard time about it, that it was slow or ugly or whatever. And my friend, he was like, "Hey man, I just saw online there's something called an SRT4. It's basically your car but fast." And I was like,
Nice.
"Yeah, I don't know, man." So I looked at it, and I've got a '96 Dodge Neon, and I was like, "I wonder if I can slap that motor in this thing." And sure enough, like 3.5, 4 years later, I had that turboed engine in this '96 Dodge Neon, total sleeper. Um, that thing just was like 350 horsepower, and the car weighed like 2,000 pounds.
Dude, that's so sick. Congrats on getting that done.
Yeah.
I know the Dodge Neon well. My first ever girlfriend, first serious girlfriend in high school, she had a Dodge Neon. It was a stick shift. She would not let me drive it because she was like, "You're not gonna screw up my clutch." But dude, that's cool. To me in my mind, there seems to be a split in pilots and aviators, and you're a pilot aviator. There's guys who are very mechanically inclined, or they grew up playing like flight simulator. They've always had it in them. And there's guys like myself who are just the opposite, right? We get into it late. I'm so happy that I got into aviation because it kind of taught me about engines. I grew up not knowing how to fix cars or any of that stuff. And this stuff is fascinating, man. Am I right? And
No, 100%, dude. It's like a whole nother world.
it is. It's so neat. It's so interesting. And thank God for the intelligent minds who have figured this stuff out over the years and built it, because I just have to understand it at like a 10% level. I love hanging out with aviation mechanics who can fix this kind of stuff and know it inside and out. And the reason I bring it up is, like I said, I saw in your videos that you're working on, your own fan. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Does it feel like sketchy when you work on your own stuff? I mean, obviously you have a lot of time working on engines, so you feel pretty confident with it.
Yeah. So the hardest thing that I had to get used to was all of my work that I had done before this with a four-stroke, four-cylinder engine it was all like electronically controlled. I had my ECU for engine management and like fuel ratios and all that stuff.
No way.
And
That advanced. You guys have ECUs and everything.
no, so not on the motor, the paramotor, but when I was working on my Dodge Neon,
Oh, I
everything
see.
was
Okay.
electronic.
Sorry.
Yeah, so
Duh.
when I went to this paramotor, it's all two-stroke carbureted, and I was like, "Oh no, dude!" Like it was the thing that I avoided forever. Like didn't want to touch needles and all that stuff, and like messing with the jets, and so that was the hardest thing to get used to, because it takes a little twist of like your needle on like your high or low on your carburetor, and it just messes everything up, right? So then you start flooding the cylinder, and then spark plug's wet, and then it just doesn't want to go, and then it flies like crap, and it just starts a whole host of problems. And then if it's running too lean, too hot, then it burns a hole in the piston, and then now you're just gliding out of the sky with a frown on your face.
Oh my gosh, dude. That is my highest level of stress, because already if I can't get my weed whacker to work right, which it has been working right for like 4 months, dude, I want to throw it against a wall. Like, dude, because it's such small tweaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, kudos to you for figuring all that stuff out. My first thought is, do you think everything in aviation right now is pushing faster, bigger, higher, right? So there's a lot, even here in North Carolina, we have a lot of movement towards supersonic flight. So do you think that there is a niche in the paramotor community to have a 4-stroke engine with an ECU and fuel control and all these things?
Yeah, absolutely. There actually already is a 4-stroke engine, and I can't off the top of my mind tell you which company makes it, but there is a 4-stroke engine out there, and there already is electronic fuel injection. There's a company, Vitarazi. They make an electronic fuel injected motor already. Again, I'm not sure of the company that's making the 4-stroke engine, but it's definitely out there. The technology is there.
That's cool, dude. Well, I'm gonna keep following you. You're obviously my guinea pig. My guinea pig. I'm living vicariously through you, watching all your videos.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna wait until you get your 4-stroke, and then I'm definitely gonna hit you up and be like, Nate, I'm coming out for a week. Teach me everything I need to know because that looks so sick. I have, you have a beautiful dog. Do you have 2 dogs?
Yeah, Winston and Penelope,
Yeah.
two golden retrievers.
Okay, so I saw that clip of you and Penelope when she was a little pup, and just cutie patootie. And
Yeah.
you have another video where it says like every flight is great when I get to end it and I get to see my dogs with a little smiling face waiting for me. And I know,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
dude, I know that feeling surreal because I have a 10-month-old puppy right now, and every single day I just want to end my flight lessons and like I'm like, oh, I gotta go get my dog. We gotta go on a walk, So, have you taken your dog flying?
Yeah, so in that video that you're watching, it's actually my boy Winston.
Okay.
He's the chunky white one, and he's just such a ball of love. When he was a puppy, I actually took him for a flight, and there's a video on my Instagram a little bit back. You can see me taking him for a flight, and we did a lot of preparation before that flight. Like we would watch TV. I had like a little simulator hung up in my living room. We'd just sit there with him on my lap and just watch TV for like 30 minutes or so with him just sitting on my lap, and then we transitioned to, a windy day when I could get the wing up overhead. And so he could feel that sensation of being pulled off the ground. And then I would run with him a little bit more after that. And so after like a month or so, I finally went up to the hill and did a flight with him.
Dude, that is so cool. And how did he react?
Yeah. He was chilling, dude. He didn't have any issues with it, but I mean, we did a lot of preparation prior to that just to make sure that he was mentally prepared for it. Because I mean, I remember my first time leaving the ground, and I was like,
whoa,
what the hell? Yeah, what the hell is happening? And you have like this like fixation on the ground. You're like, oh no. So I don't know if dogs have that, but we trained for it.
That just shows that you are a great dog dad. So you're really looking out for your buddy there.
I appreciate that.
Hell yeah, man. No, that was just so cool. I'm so glad that you're taking your dog flying because sometimes we throw dogs in airplanes with us, and one thing I always urge to owners or just clients flying along, I'm like, yo, put earmuffs on your dog. Now for you guys, you're just in open air, and I've skydived before, so I know it's just like super quiet, but in the airplane it gets really noisy, and so I'm always like, yo, protect your dogs. And we're laughing during the flight, me and the owners, because we're like, yo, this dog's going to go back to the dog park or to the dog kennel and be like, hey guys, I was in the car and it didn't just go left, right. It went up, down too. And like the ground was really far, like imagine from a dog perspective, going and talking to their other dogs, their other buddies. Like, dude, other dogs are like, Penelope, you're crazy, man. Like that didn't happen. You were smoking something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're just like, I don't know what you're telling me. It does not compute.
It does not compute.
I don't even know what that means. Like, what is this?
It does not compute at all. It doesn't. It's awesome. Yeah. So, I mentioned just now, I got to work for one weekend flying skydivers. I was a diver driver, as we call it. Have you skydived at all?
No, dude, but I'm freaking itching to get into it so bad.
Oh
yeah.
Nice, dude. Nice. I, at 34, I'm only 2 years older than you. I'm kind of more in the lane of like, oh, parasailing seems nice because I don't have to jump out of a freaking airplane and, you know, risk my life. Although that weekend that I got to fly them, I also got to jump, and it was very cool. The jump, you don't quite jump out of the plane; you kind of just fall out of it, and the feeling, the sensation is, you don't really feel like you're falling. You honestly just feel weightless. You feel like nothing is happening. If anything, you just feel cold because all that air is rushing under you. But I didn't love free fall as much. For me, under the canopy was the best, and flying around under the parachute, because that sight picture of the earth and the atmosphere and the horizon, there is nothing like it in the silence. So let's talk a little bit about that for everybody listening, because you've done a lot of that. You've done probably hundreds and hundreds of hours of flying under your canopy. So just take it away, dude. Tell me about cool times at golden hour, or cool times in midday when maybe you flew and then you had to go back to work. You have a very stressful job. We're not going to talk about that, but this seems like a perfect stress reliever and a reaffirmation in the good part of humanity. Just tell me about those really awesome flights and what it feels like being under your canopy, looking out on the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of my most memorable flights are like the ones that, like, as I'm old in age and I'm like fading away into the sunset, I'm going to remember the flights at Torrey Pines, where I'm flying right all the way till sunset, and then you just watch the sun just break that ocean line and just go away. And it's, besides the wind over your body and the glider, it's just silent. And the conditions out there are super smooth, generally not thermic, because it's just sea breeze blowing in and then deflecting off the ridge. So you can really just, take it easy and just chill there and just watch the sun go away. And you can hear the sun, or you can hear the ocean just kind of, crashing into the beach, and you can even smell it too. Man, I'll always remember those flights.
Dude, yeah, there's just something different about it. And the silence, am I right? It's just quiet.
Yeah, silent.
It's the best too. And I would imagine, you're only at a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 feet. Do you have cell service up there?
Yeah, generally speaking, I can only think of a few times where I've really lost cell service, but it's usually been when I'm like flying out deep in the mountains out near like Frisco or something like that. Already have hard cell service, but generally when we're making those flights and we know that we're going to be flying near terrain where we could potentially go down and not have cell service, we fly with like a Garmin InReach.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But there is something to be said too about not being able to be reached, right? Isn't that such a nice disconnect? You're like, dude, do you listen to music up there?
Oh yeah. I'll listen to music up there. It also depends on like what kind of flying I'm doing. If I'm doing like a flight midday and I'm really focusing, I'll fly without music because I want to listen to the wind and how it interacts with the glider, because you can hear it like surging, and you just have like that extra element of connection with your glider when you can hear more, senses.
Totally I understand, because I teach my students the same thing in the airplane. Like, you need to listen to the engine for like power settings and etc. But I wanted to ask you about music, because on your YouTube channel you have an awesome video where you did karaoke while you were flying. And dude, this is so cool because you're flying low, and I felt like you were a helicopter pilot in like Vietnam, just kind of zipping back and forth. And you were just jamming, dude. And at first I was like, oh, this is a great song. And then I noticed that you were singing along to it. So my girlfriend and I, we both saw that video, and she said, I have to ask you, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh man, dude, it changes every time I'm up there. So what's funny about that video is that was totally unintended. I didn't go up there with like, oh, I'm gonna go film this video. I didn't really think about the camera rolling until you can see me look at the camera. And then obviously like I've looked at the camera, and then after that I was like,
Game on.
more like playing into it. But before that, dude, I was just freaking flying, jamming out, having a good time. And that was the song that I was like jamming to. But lately, this last couple flights I've had, I've been listening to a lot of Kendrick Lamar. So
Nice.
he's been the go-to the last few flights.
Hell yeah. I love it. That song, what was that song that you were singing in your video?
Bruno Mars.
I got it right here. I'll tell you in just a second.
Yeah,
It
total brain
was
fart.
it was
Die with a Smile.
Bruno Mars, Die with a Smile. You're right. Die with a
Yeah.
Smile. No,
Yeah,
it
dude.
was a good tune. All right, so Nate, so you are a hockey player, you're a snowboarder, you are a one-wheel enthusiast, and like some of my college roommates and fraternity brothers in college, you are a whitewater kayaker. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Out of all
Yeah, dude.
four of those, dude, whitewater kayaking. Man, I've done it a few times. I flipped. I knew how to roll up. Whitewater kayaking, you couldn't pay me enough money to do that. Are you still a whitewater kayaker?
Yeah, actually I am. So when I first crazy story, when I first started into whitewater kayaking, um I got a boat off of like Facebook or Craigslist or wherever it was at the time. And the guy was like, "Hey man, be really careful, like you could really like hurt yourself or get killed." And I was like, I was young, I was in like high school. I was like, yeah. Just sell me the boat. Just sell me the boat, old man. Like I need to go get out on the water. So I went to like the neighborhood pool, and I, rolled a couple times, and I was like, all right, I'm good enough. Like I got this. So we go out to like this like irrigation, like river type deal, like creek.
Yeah.
Totally not nowhere that I would ever recommend nowadays for anyone to go do this. But I jump in, I start, paddling away, and I can't make it back upstream. So I just tell my buddy, I'm like, hey man, just get on Google Maps and find me at the next road that it crosses. And I get like, I don't know, like 1,000 feet downstream, and there is this like huge strainer. And, for people who don't know, it's this like, it could be sticks, it could be really anything that the water goes through, but bodies are not going to go through. And I got flipped over, stuck in the strainer, and I'm stuck under there, and I'm holding onto my paddle with like a death grip because I thought that's what I needed to do at the time. And I'm kind of like fighting for dear life. And as I start to get tired and kind of fade away, I let go of the paddle and I go out underneath the strainer and I come up on the other side, dude. Lost my boat. The only thing that I was able to keep was the paddle. I never found my boat, but that was a moment where I was like, maybe I'm done with this. And then 5 years later, I was like, maybe not.
Okay, so now you're back into whitewater kayaking?
Yeah, I don't do it too often, but one of my favorite spots is in Golden. It's Clear Creek, and they have like a little whitewater park. And,
Yeah.
I love going over to the parks and just kind of surfing around in the waves.
No, dude, that's fun. So just to recap, you never found that boat again.
Yeah, no, never found it again. And what's crazy is based on my job now, I know that firefighters, when they find those boats, they go on like a whole manhunt. And so
because I think there's a body to go with it.
Yeah, so I feel
no.
bad because I never called it in. I never said, hey, if you find a yellow boat or anything, just I'm alive and good. So
That's
I was
okay.
so young and like ridiculous at the time, dude.
That's so funny because, yeah, like I was saying in college, all my buddies were whitewater kayakers or, raft guides or whatever. So because we had a river that ran through our university, and we would go, float down on inner tubes on calm days and go ride the boats. And we had a lot of stuff in Western North Carolina. And I'll never forget the first, like you, I had gone through some roll clinics, learn how to roll upright in your boat. And the first time I was in real water, I was in a boat a little too big for me, and I had hit a couple of rapids, and we were charging. And like I said, this river was right outside my patio in my little shitty cabin that we rented in college. And there was one time where EMS was like, everybody get the fuck out of the river. And like 10 minutes later, we saw a canoe upside down, like float down with some debris. And it was like you said,
damn.
there was probably like a death involved in that. And not like really all of us, we all looked at each other like, okay, you can't play around with this stuff, right? But anyways, so this day, we had some white water, and kayakers are probably they always joke, they say safety third, right? The first rule is safety third. So it's the first rule, but hey, fuck it, it's safety third, right? So yeah, man, we're charging, and then I got into this little eddy, calm water pocket on the side of the bank, and then as I tried to go back into the river, there was like a little bit of a dip, and dude, I just so slowly, everybody saw me flip over, and immediately under the water, it's cold, you hear the whoosh of the water rushing past you. I immediately just freaking threw my paddle and let go of it right away. All my friends were right there to do a tea rescue. They were like smacking on my boat. Hey, we're here to help you lift up. Dude, I forgot all my training, and I immediately just started pushing on the back of the boat, and the skirt was just sucking me back in like a rubber band.
Yeah.
And I got so panicked. And then finally, on like the third or the fourth time of me trying to push up, I was like, oh my God, I got to pull the skirt. So I pull the skirt, and then I get out, and I'm like, and all my friends are surrounded me. They're like, dude, we've been here the whole time. We were here to rescue you. Like, Joey literally like paddled down and caught your paddle. And I was like, dude, I'll never do this as a sport. So kudos to you, man. Whitewater kayaking, like I will go I'll go do that space jump. That guy that was in an astronaut suit, and he plummeted back to Earth going like 500 miles an hour. I would rather do that than whitewater kayaking again. So kudos to you, man.
Yeah, bro, do you know what's crazy is that strangely enough, there are similarities between we'll just call it, river sports and paragliding. Just like you're saying, like you forgot all your training because you kind of got scared stiff. That very same phenomenon can happen in the air. You catch a massive collapse, air is turbulent, you're just going up and up and up and up, and all this training that you've had over, several months or maybe even a couple of years goes out the window. You're shocked, and you can't even like pull the toggles. You're just so terrified. And even the way that the water interacts with the terrain, similarly the air interacts with the terrain as well. So it's interesting how there are similarities between these sports, even though they're so different.
Yeah, and the death toll also seems vastly different, but man, yeah, I could see it because me in an airplane compared to you in your paraglider, at least the airplane, like I feel like it's stable and it's going to continue to fly. Dude, when I saw that parachute just buckle into like a bundle of mush, dude, that's scary. So how many times have you trained for that? And what is the butt pucker fact like when you just see your canopy just and you got to throw your reserve? Like, what is that like?
Yeah. So, kind of like kayaking where you can practice like rolling and all this practice in a still pool with the water not moving. Once you get out in, the real world, in the wild, when the water is moving and stuff, it's so much different. Like you can roll 100 times in a pool and have it dialed, and then you go to a river where the water's moving, and now all of a sudden you can't do it because the technique is totally different. So similarly with paragliding, we'll do these SIV clinics, and we'll just pull collapse after collapse after collapse after collapse, and then we'll do full stalls where we just pull the brakes all the way down to our butt and we hold it, and then it just drops back behind you and it just stalls all the way until you let it back up. And you can have all these skills dialed, and then when you're out in the wild, you just catch this nasty thermal. The wing surges so far ahead of you. You just take this like nasty dynamic collapse, and it just curvates up, and then it's total butt pucker factor after that, and you're just trying to get your reserve out. And interestingly, people think that oh, well, once you get the reserve out, it's game over. Now you just float down to the ground and you're safe. Well, the reserve is not always a safe ride down because you could get the reserve out and the glider is still out and open trying to fly because the glider itself always will try to fly. Like that's like what it's designed to do. That's what it wants to do. So it'll always try to fly in whatever configuration it can find itself flying in. So you could have your reserve out and you're totally safe underneath it. And then that glider starts propelling you closer to the ground because they start fighting each other. And depending on your altitude, if you can reel it in your main glider, you can obviously get a slower descent rate. But if you can't, then you kind of pound the dirt kind of hard. Or worst case scenario, you throw your reserve and the glider itself comes swinging around in an auto rotation, and then it takes out the reserve, and now you're still falling.
That last scenario, oh man. At that point, I would just go, lawn dart head first into the ground because I'm like, okay, God, you just want me to die. This is Final Destination, and I'm done.
Dude, there are some YouTube videos out there that are so crazy to watch. Like they throw a reserve, the first one doesn't open. They throw the second one doesn't open, and then while they're like caught in the strings of the glider, like their like legs are up, and they're just trying to pull lines to get a reserve to open, and they're just falling and falling and falling, and then last minute one of them opens up, and then they just touch down nice and gently, dude. Imagine that, dude.
I could not. That is a nightmare. I would wake up in sweats, and I would have pissed the bed, and I would have called off everything I had to do the next day because I had been so traumatized, dude. That is the craziest thing, and to have lived it is a whole nother level of anxiety and stress. I couldn't imagine. If you got to the ground safely after doing all that, I would urge you, go to the gas station and buy a lotto ticket because you're the luckiest 100%. Person alive.
And you know that guy, dude, he probably just went to work the next day and his coworkers were like, hey man, how's your weekend? And you're like, oh, it's not too bad, nothing too crazy.
No, dude, that guy's probably a mechanic. He probably always has his hands dirty, and he just, he didn't even talk about it for like 3 weeks, and then they're eating lunch one day and they're like, hey Steve, you done anything cool recently? He's like, yeah man, I actually had to use my 5th reserve parachute. And they're like, what the fuck, Steve? Tell us all about it.
Yeah,
those guys that can keep that calm under pressure, like I feel like a lot of them wouldn't share it for a long time because they would have been like, whew, good thing I survived that. It's just that mentality. They just brush it off like it's nothing.
Yeah, I love it when they're like out of country and they stand up on the ground and they're speaking some other language, but they're like totally nonchalant.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, UFOs died. And they're like, yeah, another day,
Yeah, I'm like sweating watching YouTube and he's like, yeah, I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, dude. So, all right. All of these years of, I would argue that you and I are both kind of adrenaline junkies. We like fast paced stuff. We play hockey, we snowboard, we one wheel. You whitewater kayak. Hell no, I'm not doing that. Have you thought about becoming an instructor in your sport?
Yeah. So every now and again, I'll go help out some of the motor instructor, or I got a motor instructor here in Colorado. I'll go help him out every now and again with like some of the ground school stuff, just to kind of give him a little bit of an extra hand with, all of that stuff. Because it's tough when you got like, 2 or 3 students and one is moving faster than the other. And, if one's already ready to leave the ground and the other is still working on the ground, him taking time for one while one's sitting and then one's flying and then one's sitting. I'll go help out a little bit with that. And then I have a couple friends that I'll go and do ground school stuff with just to see if they're interested. And I got one friend right now. She seems like she's pretty interested. So I'm kind of hoping that she, full commits because another friend in the air would be pretty sweet.
Hell yeah, man. I look forward to the videos of you and some companions up there. My only shout out that I can give for all the instructors out there that are, in the paramotor world, the FAA has provided something called the FOIs, the Fundamentals of Instruction. And for me, we kind of touched on this a little bit as I was a snowboard instructor, and I think that this is way more important than understanding the aeronautical side of things, which you have a great understanding of. And I think, me personally, I think I have maybe a mediocre understanding of. But the fundamentals of instruction are basically like understanding the psychology, right? Talking
Oh,
about
100%.
talking about like, okay, you are the instructor, and so we're giving the message, and the student is the receiver receiving the message, right? And so, like, do those two languages correlate, and is our lesson actually going through? And sometimes I feel like a person who is more equipped with that as an instructor is a lot better than somebody who understands like the physics of flying, because those guys, they might overcomplicate it. You know, I use the method, keep it simple, stupid. And in our debriefs of flying, I like to use the shit sandwich. So you got two pieces
Yeah.
of bread and some shit in between, right? So you go good,
Yep.
bad, good, you know, because it's always important to, you know, keep people on a high self-esteem. Yeah. So anyways, fundamentals of instruction. If you ever want to Google it, you know, it's right there for free on the FAA website. Anybody listening, go take a look at it. It's really cool. It's like a mini class in psychology and just trying to help you be a better teacher and communicator. And one of the things it really taught me was excuses are bullshit, man. Anytime I ever am receiving some positive criticism from anybody on anything, whether it's flying or just normal life, you know, I really have to just sit there and be like, okay, I didn't do that 100%. I can't say, well, you know, I didn't chop the carrots that way because the knife wasn't sharp. You know, it's like that's an excuse. So,
Yeah.
anyways, fundamentals of instruction. Dude, it's so neat that you want to help out your community and be an instructor. And, dude, I'm really looking forward to all of the content coming forward from both your Instagram and your YouTube. New Venture Log on Instagram, New Venture Log on YouTube. Everybody go and follow Nate. This has been super cool. What's one last little tidbit you can give to anybody interested in joining either the paramotor or the paraglider community? What's their first steps? What should they do?
Yeah, so first step is going to be finding an instructor, and then once you start working with that instructor, then you can start working on, you know, what kind of wing are you going to fly, what size of wing are you going to fly, and what motor do you need? Because everyone is different, height, weight, all that stuff. And when you start combining all those things, it's important for you to have a good setup that's not only going to last you a long time, but also be there for you while you're flying and, you know, kind of getting you through the process. It's a long learning curve, and again, the most important thing is just having a good, solid instructor under your belt.
Nate, I love it, dude. Thanks so much for coming on the pod. Appreciate you telling us all about what it is to be a paraglider, paramotorist, the beautiful scenery that you get to see. I love that you're sharing it on Instagram for us. Yeah, man, we'll do another one of these soon, and maybe next time I talk to you, maybe I will have done it myself.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, buddy.
All right, man. Have a good night. See you, everybody.
You too.
Clear to land, doing 280 at 7 knots.